What about people who don't have internet access?
Well, that was a major problem 10 years ago, but certainly the numbers of people without internet access are declining rapidly, and that can be made available in public buildings, public libraries, schools, um, uh, even vans can carry computers to housebound people, and they can be helped to vote. Churches can have give assistance to voting. So there's so much technology out there now that everyone really has access to a PC or a cell phone, and the so-called digital divide is no longer a problem in 2010 like it was in the 1990s.
With the convenience of internet voting, do you think we should have more elections than we do now?
Well, I don't really see a need for more elections in California. We have quite a few elections as it is.
So you wouldn't institute anything more in the way of instant referenda or things like that?
Uh, I don't like the idea of instant. I think people should have a chance to investigate proposals and think about different ideas. I think that instant voting would would be like a mob scene and appeal to mob psychology more than it would to the deliberative voter. That our when our founding fathers wrote the Constitution, they envisioned a deliberative voting process, and so instant voting doesn't seem to be to satisfy the need for deliberation.
Do you see any difference in how this would affect Republican or Democratic Party issues or fates?
As a matter of fact, both the Republicans and the Democrats have had internet voting experiments. In Alaska, the Republicans had an internet voting experiment in the 2000 primary, and Arizona had a internet voting experiment in the same year for the Democratic primary. And then a few years later, the Michigan Democratic primary was conducted with internet voting. So there's no bias at all, and the parties recognize that the technology is useful to both of them.
What do you envision as the likelihood that internet voting will be adopted anytime soon, on a state basis or a federal basis?
Uh, I think that the secretaries of state who have the official responsibility for deciding on what kind of voting technology they're going to use greatly favor internet voting. But the public has been grossly misinformed about the security issues of internet voting, and so the secretaries of state have to reserve their enthusiasm for internet voting because the public has been misinformed and is too nervous about the security. Once the public has been better educated about the opportunities, I think that we could see it in our lifetimes.
What's the best way you think to educate the public about the true nature of the security issue?
Well, the truth has to be publicized. The untruth is getting publicized more today in blogs and books about e-voting insecurity. There just isn't much activity on the part of pro-internet voting interests. Even the vendors aren't selling their case well, and the secretaries of state aren't going to the public with their case. So there's just a lack of pro-internet voting advocacy in the media and in books and on the web right now.
Well, for things to get done in the United States, often associations and interest groups need to lobby for them. What's the status of lobbying for internet voting right now?
Yeah, well, that's a great question. It's terribly inadequate, and for the same reason I said before, you think the people who would be most in favor of a progressive reform of our election process would be the activist progressives, but in fact, the activist progressives have been infected by this misinformation about the insecurity of internet voting, and they won't even discuss the issue. They're so convinced that the internet voting idea is a Republican conspiracy that they won't even consider what the opportunities really are for a progressive reform of the election process in the U.S.
Has that been your experience in trying to move them towards more activism in support of internet voting?
Yes, they're very closed-minded, and as soon as you mention internet voting, they say stop. Security is a problem, and the vendors will have a conspiracy, and they'll change everybody's vote, or a teenage hacker in Iran will take over the presidential election. You know, there's a computer scientist named Barbara Simmons, and she actually made that claim. And so the uninformed public hears those kinds of inflammatory mythical claims, and they're just afraid to go forward. And part of the problem is that they only think it's a matter of convenience. You know, you can vote in your pajamas at 3 a.m. in the morning. Well, if somebody in Iran can hack a U.S. vote, it isn't worth voting in our pajamas. It's better to walk down to the polls. But if you understood the way that our democracy could be enhanced and power given to the people, then, and the mythical basis for those insecurity claims, then there would be a lot more enthusiasm for internet voting.
Okay, well, what are you going to be doing next to try to create more interest in and support for internet voting?
Well, I'm writing a book on all these things that we're talking about, and I've posted drafts of all the chapters of my book on a website that professors, political scientists, and law professors post essays on, and I've been calling attention to those essays and asking people to read them and to comment on them so that I can get feedback from people and see how it's going.
Call attention to them here. Tell people how they can find them.
Well, you can go to ssrn.com and put my name in the search box, and my essays will come up. That's probably the easiest way to remember it. I suppose you'll post my name with the with this video.
Yes, say that again and spell your name.
It's ssrn.com, Social Science Research Network.com, and my name is William Kelleher, Kelleher, and I have several essays there on the security of internet voting, and people will be able to see that the titles of my essays will come up when they enter my name in the search box.
Okay, why don't you close by giving us your best argument for why the U.S. ought to adopt internet voting as soon as possible?
Today, our country is dominated by super rich special interests. We saw that in the healthcare debate, where the favored program by progressives, the program called single payer, never even got a serious hearing in Washington, and the rich corporations controlled the entire process. We've seen in elections throughout the country, just in the primaries, that the rich people are dominating our election process. President Obama spent more than $740 million to get elected. That totally cancels out any power that ordinary people have. Only the rich people, the people who bundle checks together and deliver that to his campaign, ever get a hearing. In fact, Obama's big problem today is that he's isolated from the real people, and he can only hear the advice given to him by advisors who have contacts with the super rich. So internet voting can change all that and put the American people directly in power of their election process.
All right, I want to thank you for your work and for talking to us about it today on Utopia News.
Thanks for having me, Mark. Good talking with you.
Bye.
Bye.